Hey guys, it's Dan here. In this week's video we will look at rating agencies, and the goal of this video is to understand exactly what rating agencies are doing. So how do they operate, what is their role in finance, and we will look at a specific conflict of interest that really popped up during the financial crisis of 2008. So let's get started guys, and let's try to understand what rating agencies are doing. First big question, what exactly is a rating agency? Well, a rating agency is a company. That's very important to understand because it is profit driven, okay? It's not a non-profit organization or something like that. It's profit driven. And the goal of this rating agency is to rate the financial strength of companies and countries, and especially their ability to pay back debt. That's very important. Most countries, most companies have debt for various reasons, and that's why it's very important that these companies get a grade, so that investors can know, well, can this company, can this country easily pay back the debt, more difficult, or they will never pay back the debt. Why does it matter so much? Well, think about the other side. If you are lending to someone, and let's say you are the lender, then the question is, will I be able to get my money back or not, of course? And from an investor's point of view, it's also very important because you want to know, is this company, are they making money? Can they easily pay back their debt? Because if they're not easily paying back their debt, it's going to be difficult to be profitable in the long run, and well, to give money back to their shareholders if they're not even able to pay back their own debt. I believe to understand what rating agencies are doing, the best way to do it is probably to look at the bigger financial picture. So I wanted to show you, these are actually the three policemen in finance. You have the Securities Exchange Commission, SEC, we will talk about it in a second. You have audit companies and you have rating agencies, and all three have very different roles that you have to understand what rating agencies' role is inside. So first of all, the Securities and Exchange Commission in the US, but you have equivalents in every country. Well, they are basically answering the question, are all financial players playing by the rules? So if you're not playing by the rules, the SEC will tell you, well, you're gonna be fined, or you're gonna be withdrawn from the markets because of this and this and this. To give you an example, for example, the SEC fined Elon Musk because he gave out some information that he should not have given out in advance to the markets, something like this. Now let's talk about audit companies, because a lot of people get confused between audit companies and rating agencies and don't understand exactly what's the difference. So audit companies, every country and especially every company, especially public companies, so that are listed on the stock exchange, well, they have to publish some kind of strict financial information every quarter and every year, okay? And based on these numbers and what is inside these financial reports, well, the audit companies will ask the question, are the statements correct? So what is inside the numbers, are the revenues which are inside the statement, is it correct? Is it financially correct? Are the accounting principles respected? And these kind of questions. So you see, it's more like a backwarded mentality. You're looking at what happened, and you are trying to assess, are the statements correct or not? And if the statements of a company are correct, they will say, all the big four companies, for example, you have EY, PwC, Deloitte and KPMG, which are the big players in the audit game. They will say, yes, we certify that the financial statements are correct, but that's all they do. And now comes the role of rating agencies, because so far we have not talked about ratings. We have just talked about, is it legal or not, and are the statements right or wrong. Now comes the place of the rating agencies. As I mentioned earlier, the rating agency rate the abilities of companies and countries to pay back their debt. In other terms, is there a default risk of a company? If the default risk is high, the rate will be very bad. And if the default risk is very, very low, for example, a company like Apple, then the rate will be very, very, very good. So when you look at the industry of rating agencies, there are actually three very big players. There is Standard and Poor's, S&P, Moody's and Fitch, and all three combined have about 95% of the rating agency market. So as you can see, it's a super concentrated market. Outside of that, there are almost no players, or they have absolutely no importance. So when a company or a country wants to raise debt for future plans, future investments and stuff, they need to get a grade from these three to have some kind of credibility on the markets, because the markets will look at the grade that came from one of these three and see, okay, it's a good grade, they're gonna pay so much interest, or it's gonna be a very bad grade and they're gonna pay more. But we'll talk about it in a second. What is very important to understand when it comes to rating agencies and grades is that the past doesn't really matter. It's all about future expectations. It's a bit like a stock price, okay? The stock price, let's talk about Tesla, for example. The stock price is not driven by what happened in the past, but it's driven by future expectations, okay? Think about Tesla. Nobody cares what happened the last 10 years. It's all about how will they perform in the next 5 to 10 years. That's why the stock is so high. That's exactly the same situation here with the grades. If you have great expectations, and if the agencies understand that you will probably have a very good future ability to generate profits and cash to pay back your future debt, then they will have a very positive outlook of your business, and your grade will be much better than, well, if the outlook is much more negative. Now that you know how rating agencies function in the global economy, let's look at the ratings in detail, and let's look at the impact that this rating has, well, on the company, on the country, and on the economy as a whole. So first of all, the first thing you see here is the different grades from the different three players here on the market, and as you can see, they all have the same structure. Actually, they all go from AAA to CD, which is the worst grade, a bit like in school, you know, from top grade to bottom grade. And the most important you have to understand is that there is a big difference between investment grade and non-investment grade. The non-investment grade is also called junk grade for a very good reason, because this is actually the level where it gets kind of speculative. In this case, when you are rated as a junk company or a junk country, you have a pretty high risk of defaulting. Usually it means that you already have a lot of debt, and maybe you defaulted on one or several debt payments. What does it mean for you? Well, first of all, the rate itself, of course, plays a big role on how much do you pay interests to get new fresh money, of course. And if you get downgraded, you pay more. So it also means that if you, let's say you switch from investment grade to junk grade, things you become less interesting for the big guys on the financial markets. Let's take a look, for example, at the pension funds. If you're a pension fund, you are investing money for all the pensions, right? To multiply these pensions in the future. And you are only allowed, usually in a lot of countries, like in the US, to invest in this investment grade companies, because you don't want to, well, risk too much, obviously, okay? So now that we have talked about the two first things, the impact here is huge, actually, because if your grade is going down, well, your cost of debt is going up, okay? It's a bit like your personal credit score. If you have bad reputation at the bank, of course you're gonna pay more interest, okay? That's super important to understand, and that's why the rating agencies are so important for the economy. What you also have to understand is, as a company and as a country, when you need money, well, basically there are two ways of getting into debt. First of all, bank loan, and that's gonna be limited because you don't have a huge, you will not be able to ask for a huge bank loan even if you're a huge company. But what companies usually do when they need lot of money, like a lot of billions, for example, they will issue bonds on the bond market. I made a separate video on the different financial markets if you want to check this out, link in the description below. But what is very important to understand is that these rating agencies have a huge impact, because their rating will have an important impact on how much debt, how much interests you will pay in the future. Now, it's impossible to talk about rating agencies without talking about the conflict of interest, and it was a pretty big one, and you have to understand the mechanism behind it. So as I mentioned earlier in this video, a rating agency, it doesn't matter if your name is Moody's, Fitch or Standard & Poor's, they are all three companies that are profit driven. Okay, that's very important to understand. The question is, how do they generate revenues? Who pays them? Well, actually, this is the big conflict of interest, is actually these rating agencies, they get paid by the companies and the countries they are rating. It's a bit like, imagine your school teacher that rates you. Imagine you are paying his salary, and let's say you are not happy with the grade, you are saying, oh, maybe, you know what, I'm gonna switch to another school, and you will not get your salary this month, you know. So this is clearly a big conflict of interest. And of course there are a lot of rules preventing a lot of things, but it happened in the past that you have seen a lot of big conflict of interests here. Why? Because of course the client, in this case the company or the country which has been rated, well, they can easily switch between these three. Let's say Moody's rated me pretty badly and I'm really unhappy. Me as a company or as a country, I can say, you know what, Moody's, I don't like my grade, I'm gonna go to Standard & Poor's or Fitch. So that's a very important message and thing to understand. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, all the three agencies play by the same rules. So actually, if you switch from one company to the other one, it can be a threat, but it's probably not going to change a lot, because of course all three companies rate more or less with the same criteria, let's put it like this. What is very important to know regarding conflict of interest is that we have a very big example, and that's why they have been criticized a lot, because in the financial crisis 2008 there were a lot of risky mortgages, to be more specific, mortgage-backed securities, MBS, that have been very well rated. The problem is they were very risky, and so actually there was a big distortion between very risky stuff that was very well rated. So actually there was a big conflict here, and which kind of drove us into the financial crisis. The rating agencies were definitely part of it. So as a conclusion, yes, I would like to know from you, what do you think about rating agencies? Are they too powerful? Should something change? What do you think about the conflict of interest? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, let me know what kind of topic you would like to have in the future. Because I post once a week every Sunday, so if you like that kind of content, corporate finance, market finance, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like. It takes me about 6 hours of research and cutting and filming and stuff. So make sure to like and subscribe. Enjoy your week. See you soon, guys. Bye bye.